Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Chasing Dreams podcast with Charlie and Justin. We're on episode 138, and we're recording even earlier than like our earliest recordings, I guess, because it is 3:30 in the morning.
Yes, it is.
It kind of fits our whole narrative of, not making excuses and making sure that we get these episodes out and all that stuff. You had work. I had a training session to hit early today, and the afternoons was going to look cloudy at best for us. So we decided to just hit it this morning, and you said initially 4:30, but that's when I start lifting today. So 3:30 it is.
That's it. We got to do what we got to do, right?
And I've mentioned it before on the podcast about how when you look at our upload times and dates, sometimes the dates push back, and it's just because I think of the time zone, because we've always just had it uploaded on Saturday. So if anybody wants to call us out and question that, there's the answer why. So this was always uploaded on Saturday. And I know that we say this all the time about making sure that we upload early in case something were to happen. And actually, to be fair, it's almost like, I want to say proper planning and execution on our part, but it's almost like a little bit of luck too that something hasn't happened, because you store everything on one computer. I have no like external hard drive, and I probably should have that as a backup just in case, but like nothing has happened to this point where we've had to just record late or miss a week or whatever. So it's kind of a blessing that that's happened or been able to happen,
I agree. Because early on when we started doing this, we said we wanted to have a bank of just in case. And we pretty quickly got away from that just because of life. And we've been 100. I'd say we've been 134 weeks pretty strong since then, that we haven't never had a bank. So that's pretty cool.
Yes. Yep. What we did initially at the beginning was we front loaded a bunch of podcasts into like a database, so to speak, where we recorded several episodes all at once. Then we didn't want to release them. There was a lot of troubleshooting on our end to figure out like, hey, how do we upload these? Like, what platform do we go through? How does it work? All that stuff. And now it's kind of like a well-oiled machine. And sometimes it's kind of an analogy for what we preach a lot, specifically yourself, about trying to get out of comfort zones, is the fact that I think one of the reasons why, and this is obviously not a good thing and something that we need to correct, one of the reasons why we don't have guests or haven't had guests on as frequently as we should, or wait till, quote, the last minute to record them, is just because of comfort. Because it's so easy for us at this point to churn out a podcast that we don't really have to have much planning or, to be fair, even much execution after the planning to make it happen. So I think that that complacency or that comfortability has caused us to kind of slack a little bit, in a sense, when you look at it from like a truly unbiased opinion, I think.
I'd have to agree. It's cool that we've gotten to the point where we're comfortable doing it. It's so comfortable doing it, but yeah, you're probably 100% right there.
So speaking of comfort and those things, last week, I remember we ended the episode talking about kind of almost like a minimalization of our lives. And we mentioned, for those that didn't listen, how we were trying to simplify everything and looking for ways to simplify just everything that we do, like our life. And I wanted to take a couple minutes just to kind of circle back to that, because usually when we tell people, hey, this is what we're going to do, we're going to do something, we'll let you guys know how it goes, we almost always follow through on that. And so I wanted to make sure that I followed through and kind of gave some examples of ways that I did things, just so everyone was clear and understood. So one of the things that I did on my end was I did do the close thing that we talked about, because I said that one of the things that I've contemplated over the past couple years or past couple months or whatever, off and on, is I've thought about how easy it would be to wear the same thing every day and not have to worry about clothes. It would save you money from purchasing clothes. It would save you time from thinking about what you're going to wear, all that stuff. Well, I have a ton of No Excuse Nation shirts, obviously, and I'm putting in a new order for more here shortly, in the coming week or so. So I'm going to put in a few extra than I would normally order just for myself, and kind of not completely reduce my wardrobe just to that, but slowly start to get rid of old clothes, donate them to homeless shelters, donate them to Goodwill stores, and get rid of all that stuff. So that way it kind of simplifies my wardrobe. And I also think that I mentioned this, but if I didn't, I apologize. But this is one thing that I was thinking about was deleting any external apps off of my phone that I don't feel are beneficial to me. So I have this game called Royal Match. I don't know if I mentioned it. It's kind of like Candy Crush. And unfortunately, for some reason, it's become somewhat of an addiction for me, to a degree. I don't want to say an addiction because like I don't ever need to play it. It's just kind of like a, I don't know, like a spare time consumer.
Space filler.
Yeah, that's it. Space filler. That's a good way to put it. It's a space filler. And I realized that I don't need space fillers in my life. I need more space. I don't need space fillers. So what I did is remove that app entirely just because it was consuming time. And that's like screen time on my phone that's not productive. And I think that I did mention it because I remember saying that even if it's like a 5-10 minute window of playing the game, that's a 5-10 minute window I could create content or post something on social media that's beneficial. So that app has been completely deleted.
That's awesome. So
something that needed to happen for me,
right. So is the wearing the same clothes every day going well for you then?
Yeah, I wouldn't even say that it would be wearing the same clothes every day yet because I haven't gotten to that point. Like it's in the infancy stages where
Right.
I've gotten rid of some old clothes and going to continue to like sift through and get rid of more. I'm also going to order more hoodies because I'm more of a hoodie person. And right now I only have one No Excuse Nation hoodie because the rest have been sold. So I'm going to have to get more of those because all the No Excuse Nation clothes I have are just t-shirts. So if I'm going to wear the brand, I want to wear the brand as much as possible. So I need to order some more hoodies to make that happen in its entirety. But like I said, I am undergoing the steps to getting to that point. So
That's
I'll
awesome.
have to check back in with you on that.
That's awesome. So for me, we talked right after we aired last week, and I think the biggest thing that I wanted to get rid of was not a physical thing, wasn't an app, it wasn't anything physical. It was something mentally, and that was negativity. So I have made a large cognizant effort to, anytime something were to come up that were to be inconveniencing or the one thing we talked about after the episode last week was I have a very large garden, and that's a huge part of my life, and I've been battling with animals getting in and eating some of the garden. So even when it comes to the groundhogs making attempts to burrow under the fence or break the barrier, that's something that was causing me to become very negative.
Yep.
And instead of being angry with the groundhogs, I have just figured out ways to battle them. So, but that's just one example. Anytime anything came up, I checked myself. I checked it at the door basically and said, you know what, you have two options, and I say this stuff all the time, but you have two options. You can respond negatively, or you can figure out a way to be constructive and figure it out. And I made sure that this week, anyways, that I took the route of always being constructive and figuring it out. So I thought that one was something that, no, it's not hard. It's not easy to show like a weighted progress, I guess, because it's more of a mental thing. But I know that I've been happier. I felt better this week because of it. The mood and the mental space have always been a lot better this week. So I think I'll continue to move forward with the not having any negativity.
Yep. And I think that's a great place to focus on. I'm sorry to interrupt you there. It's a great place.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Because number one, it's high return on investment. Like that's something you're going to find probably a lot more impact on. Not that my choices were poor, but you're going to find a lot more impact from deleting negativity from your life than you would deleting something on your phone. It's a lot more of a grand step than what I did. So I really admire that.
And well, I didn't have anything on my phone really to delete. I mean, I guess I could get rid of TikTok, I guess. I don't use it a lot anymore. I did for a while, but I don't anymore really. YouTube's my video outlet, but always use videos for education. So, I mean, TikTok, I guess I could get rid of. I haven't yet, but
Well, I feel like you use that for, I don't necessarily want to use the word progress. It might be used in an inappropriate context here, but you're like, you use that for, I guess, education maybe, because like you're constantly telling me about like different exercise variations or training items that you want to try that you get from there. So it's not entirely
right.
valueless.
Yeah, because I've built the what is the thing that you use for social media? The equation. I can't remember what it is.
Like the
But
algorithm.
yeah. I've basically twisted the algorithm because of my search history and stuff, that everything that pops up on my For You page that when I'm scrolling through TikTok or YouTube is always geared towards, gardening or working out or diet tips or, sleep enhancement stuff in that area. So I don't I see what you're saying, and I think you're right. It's more used for me towards education because I'm a visual learner, so
Yeah.
the more I can see it, the more I can learn from it. So, anyways, the second thing that I got rid of was I stayed out of gas stations completely. I have a habit of stopping in and getting fancy waters, Gatorade Zeros, BioSteel. There's a lot of gas stations in the areas where I work that have the BioSteel.
I'm not
I
familiar
really
with
like
that
it.
at all.
Oh, it's an energy. It's not an energy drink. It's a sports drink. It's an electrolyte.
Okay.
0 calorie. It's very good. I really like them. But anyways, I spend a lot of time in gas stations. Not a lot, I guess, on a grand scheme of the day, but staying out of gas stations makes me more productive. So if I need gas, I just pull in and pay at the pump and then peel out.
Yeah.
I always have enough water in the truck with me. I always have my food with me. I don't need to go in there. It's just they got so-and-so drink. I'm going in to get that. And it's saving me money, saving me time. So yeah, those are the two things that I did that were useless. Negativity to me is completely useless. So I could just cut the VAT on that. And then staying out of gas stations, you don't ever need to go inside, especially when you have a company fuel card.
Yeah, for sure. I think that, we've had that age-long debate for a long time about things like when people admit problems but aren't able to fix them, is that discipline or is that not a display of discipline, where the person can say, hey, I have this issue, like that shows a lot of discipline, but if they're unable to fix it, then it shows a lack of discipline. But I guess that's not really the case with you either way, because you're identifying the problem and making active steps to fix it, because you've told me that before. And then that also not only is a nutritional benefit for you, but then also a financial benefit for you.
Right. Which will then come back full circle.
And dude, I was reading this post. Gosh, I wish I would have been more like in the moment or more present for it, because I could have remembered who posted it and what they said. But I was seeing this guy who was posting something about, essentially to me, it seems like he's completely off the grid and has like almost entirely just completely axed almost everything out of his life other than his family. And he was talking about how little money you're able to survive on if you get rid of a car payment, and how you can like problem solve around not having things like, so like even someone like myself, I could feasibly, it would be silly and unnecessary probably, but I could feasibly probably even get away without like paying for water, because I work at a gym. I spend a lot of time at that gym, and I could shower there, have access to running water there. I don't drink from a faucet at home, obviously for cooking purposes, but you could use bottled water. So foreseeably, that's something that I could get rid of. And that was just one example. He went through a list of things that he doesn't need or doesn't use. And if you don't need it or don't use it, you don't pay for it. And was just talking about how sustainable life is on such a minimal income, almost to the point where as long as you did something little for money, like once a month, just to get like a little bit of a lump sum, you really wouldn't even have to have a job or something.
Right.
Now, not saying again that that's feasible for most people, but it was pretty cool to think about, like, man, how much crap do I spend money on that I don't really need to spend money on?
Oh man, the list is endless, and I'm not saying you. I'm saying everybody.
Yeah,
You
but
know,
I'm certainly in that paradigm.
yeah, like just I could get on a rant, but like all the food that we buy, if every family learned how to hunt minimally and learned how to plant a minimal garden, you can
Yep.
minimize so much money that you spend, especially today with inflation the way it is and the cost in the grocery store. It's crippling families in America
Well, dude, let's not even.
and across the world.
So that's obviously a fair point, but for some people that may seem extreme. I don't think it's extreme, and I think that, like, I've heard people even postulate that, like, hunting is a necessary skill that people should learn just in case. But
I agree.
anyway, let's put that aside. Let's just say, instead of even saying I'll make this more modernized for people that are like turned off to that idea, not only could you say hunting and gathering in a sense for food to a minimal degree, but even grocery shopping more intelligently or more like planned or measured would, because I
Yeah.
don't know if you remember this. This was pretty cool. Remember back in the day, Animal Pack, the supplement company that was owned by Universal, and they had like the vitamins and a very like hardcore supplement line, so to speak, geared towards bodybuilders in like the early 2000s. I think it was Animal that did it later on. They did a series. I want to say it was called Big on a Budget or Huge for 100 or something alliterative like that, where they would have these pro bodybuilders go into a store and they would get enough groceries for a week for a bodybuilder who obviously is, taking in more calories than your average person. And they would do it on a limited budget. So they would do it for $50. So they would have to go in and problem solve. Okay, I only have $50 for groceries this week. How am I going to allocate that appropriately? What am I going to do? What am I going to spend it on? Like, okay, eggs are cheap. This is cheap. And then when they wanted to buy something, they would calculate it and say, okay, well, I got to put this back because I bought this. So it looks like I can't buy this extra condiment that I wanted because I need this fat source or whatever. And it was pretty cool, but just because I think that it opens your eyes to like the things that you don't really need as much as you think you need. And I think that it's kind of a little bit counterintuitive to some of the stuff we preach about always doing more and pushing more and going the extra mile, so to speak, both literally and figuratively. But when you think about it, like training volume, I think early on when people start to exercise, they kind of overestimate how much exercise they really need. Coincidentally enough, they underestimate how much focus on their nutrition they need, but I think you need less than you're led to believe. So like when you talk about, like, again, going back to training volume, you don't need to be in the gym for 2 hours. In fact, when you first start off, that's probably counterproductive and harming you more than it's helping you. So I think that when you look at materialistic goods, we for sure are a country that overconsumes to an ungodly degree.
I agree 100%. You can't, it's wild the amount of people that you hear say, I need that new TV or I need the new iPhone. No, you want that.
Yeah.
We don't need them. We don't need the bright new shiny thing. It's things that we want because we want them. But yeah, it's, we can do with a lot less, and comfort level can stay relatively high, for those that want that, want to be comfortable. But we choose to put ourselves in a place where we're way stressed out and way negative and way, left field when it comes to everything, because we want that new bright shiny thing or the name brand, big box brand at the store, the name brand cookies,
Yeah,
stuff like that. So, or if you're, with health food, organic 100%, all the, which organic is definitely better, but like you said, big on a budget. You can do things on a budget and not stress yourself out over money, especially in these times.
And I think that in my brain, when you talk about when you said like choosing comfort and people who choose to be comfortable and buy those comfortability items or those luxury items, I guess would be a good phrase for it.
Yes.
That kind of triggers a thought in my mind, which is not necessarily convoluted, but definitely like a kind of lengthier talking point. So I think that would be a great time to go to a commercial break because that's going to spark a whole nother discussion on my end. So how about we do this? How about we go to a quick commercial break and then we'll talk more about that when we come back.
As listeners of the Chasing Dreams podcast, we know that you demand the highest quality at all times. If you're interested in quality, look no further than Beast Mode Baking. Beast Mode Baking aims to bring the highest quality, creative, and of course delicious baked goods to your home with nationwide shipping. All orders need to be pre-ordered to ensure they're packed fresh and shipped out to you as soon as possible. Beast Mode Baking offers a flat rate of $15 for shipping due to the size and weight of the cookies and doughs. So if you're interested in Beast Mode Baking, please contact CEO Shannon Knorr. That's at SKNORR13 on Instagram and order your delicious baked goods today because every time you support them, you're supporting the podcast as well.
And we are back from our commercial break. All right, Justin, prior to the break, we were talking about living a life of comfort and how you can minimalize things. We initially started this discussion last week in terms of alleviating stress and having better time management and stuff like that. And it kind of rolled over to today's episode just because we were kind of looking in hindsight and retrospect about some of the things we axed out of our life. Well, I was thinking about the comfort thing, and part of me has undergone this revelation over the past year that it's okay to like those things, because I was always one of the people that was kind of, I tried to be humble about those things and say, oh, you don't need this. It's about the product. You don't need the money that results from the product that you're doing, like the job that you're doing. It should be about self-satisfaction, self-gratification more than the money. But I feel like as I've gotten older, I've gotten to the point where it's okay to have those things. Like it's completely okay to want to drive the nicest car if it makes you feel good. It's okay to want to have the biggest house if it makes you feel good. However, here's where the talking point kind of spirals into a lengthier and deeper discussion for me, is where I look at those things and I realize that the more I engulf myself in them, I know the less happier I am. And I think it's twofold. I don't know if it's one, because of the chase, that like I'm never satisfied with it, or if two, it's predicated on the fact that it brings me more stress and anxiety. Like if you, like, for example, when I bought a new car, probably, well, over a year ago now, but probably a year and a half ago, I bought a new car. And it was my first car that I ever bought truly new. Like I bought used cars before with minimal miles, but this was the first vehicle that I ever bought that was brand new. And it was amazing how worried I was about the car, like getting it scratched, parking in a crowded parking lot, not parking far away from the building where no one was there, worried about leaving at certain places. Like all it did was create more stress. Whereas when I've had older vehicles that, you know, had 100,000 miles on them and were paid off, I didn't have to worry about what the car looked like or how the car performed or whatever, or who was around the car. So it was like a ton less stress for me. And then likewise, right, you know, I just recently, within the past year, moved into a new house. Same thing. When I lived in a little tiny apartment that I was renting, not that I didn't care about it, but like if something were to happen to it, it wouldn't be catastrophic for me because it's not my apartment. Hopefully that doesn't sound cynical, but you know what I mean? There was a lot less stress involved, right, versus now that I have my own house. Initially, the first 2 months were terrible because I was so concerned about everything and worried about the appearance and worried about, you know, getting this fixed and that fixed. And so it was like the more that I surround myself with luxuries, the less luxurious my house or my life became as a result. So it was very ironic in that sense. So I think that when we start to talk about those things about minimizing your life, I don't necessarily think that's for everybody. I just think that that's where I was and what I needed to do. And I think that if you are one of those people who likes those comfort items, then for sure, you man, keep them around, do them, use them, you know, relish in your accomplishments. If you're someone who's worked hard for your money and you have a lot of it, certainly feel free to spend it on yourself and on your family, just out of pure entertainment and joy, if that's something you like. But for me, it wasn't helping. It was actually hurting. So I don't know if you have anything to share on your end of that, but I definitely feel like the more luxury items I get, the less luxurious my life became.
I agree. I'd like to add to that though, like when you said, if you're someone who likes to relish in those things, that's good, do it. That's fine. But I think it's definitely important for people to, and this is something I've done, is prioritize, certain items. If you're going to do that, prioritize certain things on a list and don't jump around, follow the list, because otherwise you're going to stress about the big purchases that are not in order, not in the right order.
Mm-hmm.
Like, try to do things to minimize the stress about the purchasers, the stress about the ownership. I'm trying to think of a good example. Okay, one thing that we did this year, so we have a big party for Memorial Day, and there is a lot of kids in our family, like a lot. Probably 20, like adolescent to early teens to even 20, but they all play and hang out together when we have big family get together. So I rented a big oversized slide, and I was really cognizant to think about it because they set it up the day before the party, so it was in my yard and was here, and I was looking at this thing and I was thinking about it, like 5 years ago I would have ruined that party for these kids that hadn't even happened yet, because I'd have been so worried about if that thing was going to cost me money because we broke it.
Yeah.
And now it's like, not that I have buckets of endless money, because I assure you I don't. I just don't worry about it because I paid for the insurance.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I minimized the size that we rented so we could afford the insurance, so we didn't have to worry about that. So I could tell the kids, as long as you guys don't get hurt, I don't care what you do.
Yep.
As long as you're safe on it, go have fun and don't worry about that thing. If it breaks, it breaks. I'm not worried about it. So, and like you said, not to be cynical, not because it's not mine, but I paid for the insurance to ensure that we're good. So it's just a thought process of, when you go big, keep it moderate enough that you don't have to worry about it. I used to do that with my truck, my red truck. When I bought it, I didn't let people drink in it, didn't let people eat in it, nothing, because it was new. It was new to me anyways. I've never owned a new vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
And the older I get, the more I think I never will. I don't want, not that I won't be able to afford it. I could afford it now, but I just don't think I will. It's just not on my priority list. But now I'm like, as long as the people are safe and happy and having a good time, I don't care what they do in that thing at all. I think it's more with age and wisdom, not that I'm wise, but the older we get, the more wisdom we gain, the realization of what the priority should be. Yeah. I guess that was all I had to add to that.
Yep. No, I think that you're right. And I think that when you talk about those priorities or creating priorities, in terms of like what you want to buy, how you want to live your life, whatever, I think that I would annotate this and add there that for me, one of the important parts of that is the prioritization and figuring that stuff out is prioritizing to, or at least itemizing the why for each of those. So when you go through and say, I want this the most, I want this new TV, I want this car, I want whatever, I think that it would be important for you to like mentally go through a checklist or an itemization of why you want those things, because I don't think that nobody's why is invalid. I know that people say, oh, well, like here's a gym analogy, go figure. Yeah, I noticed that a lot of people will put down reasons that people want to get in shape. Like they'll say, oh, well, this person just wants to get in. They just want to start working out because they're going on vacation. They want a 6-pack or they want to get their abs leaner for a couple weeks. And it's like, okay, well, who cares? What's wrong with that? Like, just because you work out doesn't mean you should get on stage and compete. In fact, that would be silly. Like one of my friends has a wedding coming up and he's getting married, and he's very inconsistent with the gym, and he would be the first person to admit that. But he started working out again because he wants his arms to be bigger for his wedding pictures. Like, nothing wrong with that. People would frown on that and say it's a stupid idea and why would you do that? And it's like, well, who cares? That is his why is important to him, and that's not your why. You know, your why may be different. Maybe you have bigger goals, so to speak, of going to the gym than, or more important reasons that you deem important, but whatever is important to him is important to him, and that it is what it is. So when you do this priority list, I don't think that there's any wrong priorities or, you know, inappropriate ways to go about it. But I think that when you do the priority list, it's important to say, okay, why do you want this? Because I think that if somebody actually did this and they listed it out and they said, okay, you know, I'm going to go through my list of things that I want. Here's what it is. And then and even if like they had someone read it, like Justin, if I did it and I said, hey, Justin, look at my list. Tell me what you think. I think that you might be like, not embarrassed, but a little bit like apprehensive or cautious to put your whys on there. Like, oh, I want a new TV because I want to show it off to people that come over my house when I have like family parties. Or I want this new car because I want people to look at me differently at the gym when I park it in the parking lot or whatever. Again, if that's your reason, then that's your reason and that's fine. But I think that you may even get to the point where you switch your priorities around once you actually put it into paper and realize why you want these things. But like everything we do, dude, and you and I can relate to this more than anybody, it takes a true measurement or a true analysis of self. Like, you have to be honest with yourself when you do that, because I think it'd be very easy to put these on paper and say, oh, well, I want it because of this reason, even though that's not really the reason, you know?
Right. And it's funny because we do that. It's just like societally, everybody does that. They'll say this is why, but realistically, that's not why. And it's obvious to everybody else around them, but they're like almost in denial.
Yeah.
Me, I'm 100% guilty of that, you know, all the time. So yeah, I have to agree with that.
Well, everybody's guilty of that, dude. Like, I know people that say, like, at the gym, and I brought this up on the podcast before, people say, oh, well, you know, the only reason I lift is just because I like pushing myself, and that's all I care about is just self-improvement. It's like, okay, well, there are billions and trillions of other ways for self-improvement. Go read a book. That's self-improvement. You know, go try to get a promotion. That's self-improvement. Spend more time with your family. That's, you know, emotional self-improvement. Like, it's okay to say, and that may be part of the reason you go to the gym, but that's not the only reason. Like, people have said, I've heard people say, like, if there weren't any health benefits and there weren't any like physical benefits of how you look, I wouldn't go to the gym. And I'm like, well, I would go to the gym. I would still go to the gym. I'm sorry. And I sometimes tend to think that that's BS. You wouldn't go to the gym if there were no health benefits and it didn't improve the way you look at all. And it's like, oh, well, I like pushing myself. Well, yeah, there are other ways to push yourself that would elicit more value. Like, if you're not getting any value from the working out, then like an exercise in the form of looking better or feeling better, why would you do it? Like, people say, oh, well, I don't care about how I look. Like, they can be mutually exclusive. Like, you can say, I like going to the gym to push myself, but I also like taking my shirt off and looking good. Like, that's okay to say that. That's not like a super self-righteous thing to say. So I don't know. I think that sometimes, like, you're right, people are not truthful with themselves on why they like things. And it's, again, I think that people may change their priorities if they're truthful with them, but even if they're truthful and they want to keep them, that's fine too. Like, you can say, I like having this nice car because I have a good job that I work really hard at. I've saved my money and I want to show it off to everybody. Like, cool, dude. That's awesome. If that makes you feel good, then I'm going to be right there for you and tell you, yeah, dude, that car's sick. I couldn't afford that. I'm really happy that you worked that hard to get it.
Yeah, absolutely. By all means, anybody who's doing anything that is 100% for their why, I don't care what it is. Yes. I don't care at all. I'm in your corner. I am on your team. I am your guy. because at the end of the day, it's not about my why when it's in your life. It's about your why. It's about why you're doing it. And that's the one thing that I've ever been so grateful for everybody along the way for my journey is whatever my why was. Everybody's always been. I have yet really to find somebody, too many people anyways, that have been negative to my why.
Yep.
So, that's something that I've really notated, that you can't discredit somebody's why because it's not yours.
Yep. I agree with that full-heartedly, dude. And I think that brings us to a point now where, like we like to do on almost all of our episodes, is how do we create actionable steps from here? Because that's one of the things that we do to try to provide value for people, the new listeners, is, try to give advice. I don't want to even say advice, because that makes me feel like I'm putting us on a pedestal that's undeserved. We try to give recommendations to ourselves or advice to ourselves that we're going to try to hammer home on this episode. So every time we do something like give advice or whatever it is, we want to try to kind of practice what we preach in a sense and go do it for a week and then revisit. So based on prioritizing things and itemizing like your why for things, what are some actionable steps off the top of your head that you and I can do? Because I'm trying to think of things. I think that what I would do personally, just to start us off, is I think I'm going to list out the top 3 things that I want right now, materialistically speaking. So I don't want to say, oh, I want happiness, or I want to be less negative, or I want to spend more time with my family, or whatever. I want to actually go through and do like tangible things. Like if I had an unlimited budget to a degree, what are the 3 things that I would like most right now? And let's not even say unlimited budget. Let's go based on our current budget. Like if we were able to save for a couple months or whatever.
Right.
So nothing, because I don't want to do like things that are unrealistic. Like, oh, I would get a Ferrari. Here's why I would get a Ferrari, because that's not really an actionable step, because it's prioritizing things that aren't even in the scope of prioritizing for me. So I want to come up with 3 things that I could feasibly get within the next couple months if I financially plan appropriately, what my top 3 things are, why I rank them that way, and then share it with people, because I think that would help get the ball started for others. So do you think that that's a good idea?
Yeah, I'd like to add to that. Identify your why on those 3 things. And so for me, what I'm thinking is, why I say that is because our why is always evolving. It changes. The exact why from the beginning of somebody's journey to 5 years into their journey is not always exactly the same.
Yeah.
It might be along the same area. It might be in the same realm, but it's not the same thing. So yeah, I like the identify 3 things that, prioritize or make a list of 3 things that you want to get, or, that are actual tangible, actual items, but why?
Yep. I apologize if I did not. That was actually my intention. So I'm sorry if I didn't mention that. Yeah, for sure. So I definitely agree with that. Find the why too, because it would be kind of a futile exercise, no pun intended with the fitness reference, but almost like an exercise in futility if we just listed the priorities. Although there could be some introspection that comes from it. Like you might be like a little bit self-reflective and say, oh, these are the top 3 things I want. Man, now that I really think about it, I don't know if those are the top 3 things I want. I need to change that. But certainly intentionally, I want to add the why there too, for sure. So I'm glad you mentioned that if I didn't. So 3 things, find out what the top 3 financially feasible luxury items that you want are right now, and itemize them by annotating with the why. Why do you want them? And then share it on social media, share it with Justin and I, share it with a friend, and we will make sure to do the same.
Absolutely.
All right. So with that, we have come to the end of another episode of the Chasing Dreams podcast with Charlie and Justin. This has been episode 138. As always, we appreciate your guys' listenership, and we look forward to hearing back from you all next week.
Unbreakable, unstoppable, I'm pushed to the edge.